Welcome to Fresh Start Podcast. I'm Dave Henning, and my guest today, I'm really excited to have with me Scott Aaron from the Philly, New Jersey area. Scott, welcome.
David, thank you so much for having me. Just grateful and honored to be here.
As we mentioned, we have some interesting connections from the past, some training, some breakthrough training, some people that we both know and have appreciated, and we have some similarity in our backgrounds. So, Scott, I'm really interested and fascinated. LinkedIn's buildings are right down the street from me here in the Silicon Valley, and they were just past the Googleplex, and then they decided to build up some massive buildings down in the next town over. And it's interesting that a lot of people feel, as business owners and real estate people, all different kinds of professionals, feel like I need a presence on LinkedIn, but they have literally no clue what to do with it other than being there. And it's kind of like a little place to have your profile. So what would you say to people like that who say, I'm on LinkedIn, but I really don't know why?
I literally just had this conversation with someone that actually just hired me. And they started a profile whenever they started it, and then basically it's been collecting dust ever since. And that's where I was too. I mean, in all honesty, I signed up for LinkedIn back in 2009 because it was a social media platform. That's what people were doing at that time. Everybody was getting on Facebook, and then they were getting on Instagram, and it was the thing to do. But then, social media kind of took over, and Facebook was absolutely in the forefront of people's minds. And everyone thought that LinkedIn was for recruiting and getting recruited or finding a job. I mean, because that's the way it was. It was a networking platform for people, for job seekers. So I, like most people, pushed it to the back burner. And it's funny, the backstory about how I got into LinkedIn, but how I come to realize that, in my humbled opinion, it's the number one business building tool out there for people to use. I was like you. We have a very similar background. I've been in network marketing on the business and also coaching side now for just over 7 years. And between 2013 and 2015, things were really good because everybody was building their business through the means of Facebook. It was just an open network. People were using it. It was just phenomenal. And then Facebook started to catch on to what network marketers were doing and how they were promoting and selling and building their business. And they started to clamp down on the organic engagement. And I saw this firsthand. It just wasn't the same. And I was at actually a personal development event, and the host of the event was talking about connecting and connections, and something that Gary Vaynerchuk still talks about right now. He says your net worth is always in direct correlation to your network. So if you have a small network, you're going to have a small net worth, but the larger the network that you have, the larger of a net worth you can create. But what this gentleman was talking about your network and your connections, he goes, that's everything. Your conversations are the key to your success. And if you're not talking to enough people, you're not going to make it in any business, whether it's network marketing or not. You can't wait for people to come to you. Sometimes you have to go to them. So he had all these top leaders come up on stage, and he had them write on the board how many conversations they had to have to get to where they were. And these were people, David, that were making multiple 6 and 7 figures a year. And the smallest number I saw was 7,000 conversations.
Wow.
That was my reaction. I said, I guess I'm in trouble because you're only allowed 5,000 friends on Facebook, and half of those people want nothing to do with what you're doing because they're not on there for business purposes. It's a social entertainment. And then I remember something that one of my first mentors said to me. Her name's Susan Sly, incredible network marketer. And she said, Scott, every day that you wake up, you need to look yourself in the mirror, and you have to ask yourself, how am I going to connect with myself today? And it was one of those aha moments, because I was going about network marketing and business, for that matter, all wrong. I was not looking for me. If I wanted to build a business, I needed to look for that business-minded person like me. My background's in health and wellness. I owned a few gyms and I was a personal trainer and nutritionist. So I wanted to seek out and find those people. And honestly, the best place that you could do that was on LinkedIn. So I jumped on there. I dusted off my profile and I started using it again. And I fixed my profile, put some keywords in there, started searching and connecting and messaging, and people actually started responding back. And I started having phone call after phone call and after phone call. My business grew and grew and grew. And I reached out to a friend of mine, Joe Alonzo, and I said, Joey, listen, you got to get on LinkedIn. I said, this is a gold mine. Whether you're in sales or business coaching or network marketing, this could solve a lot of problems. And I told him of what I was doing. And he started using the platform. And about a week later, he texted me. And he said, call me. So I called him and I said, what's up? And he goes, dude, whatever you're doing, it really works. He goes, I have 14 appointments booked this week.
Holy cow.
So at that point, the lifeline to any business that's built around people. And I realized I had something here. And I knew inherently that there's two things that people struggled the most with. Number one, getting quality leads. Number two, building their team. And I was good at both. And then coincidentally, a mutual friend and connection of ours, Jeffrey Combs, who we have both worked with, Jeffrey caught wind of what I was doing. And he said, listen, and I think you remember this, Jeffrey used to have a live call called the More Heart Than Talent weekly call. And it was Tuesday nights at, I think it was around 9 or 10 p.m. And he wanted to feature me as a guest. So he had me on, and I was just going over what I knew about LinkedIn and all these things and how important it was and the demographics, how the average age is 30 to 55, and these people make $75,000 to $100,000 a year or more, and you're allowed 30,000 connections. And I was just, spitting out all this knowledge. And at the end of that call, I went onto Facebook and I had 9 inboxes of people that wanted to hire me. And I didn't know what they wanted to hire me for because I didn't have anything actually to sell them. But as I opened each message, they say, can you teach me LinkedIn? And now I realize that I struck a chord because there was actually a pain point that a lot of these entrepreneurs were feeling that I was now able to provide a solution for. And what people don't realize is that LinkedIn, it's not a social media platform, David. It's a search engine. It's a search engine. Yeah. It's where people go to network, to connect, to collaborate, to create, to do business, to pass referrals. I mean, there's millions of dollars to be made on that platform, and people just don't know the simplistic way to use it. And that's what I've created. It's from a very, very low level standpoint. There's a 4-step process of how to really genuinely and authentically use LinkedIn. And it's not difficult, just people need to do the basics sometimes to get the right results.
So what I hear you saying is, Scott, that it's not the place for cat videos.
Not at all.
I just had to throw that in there.
Not at all.
Because as you know, LinkedIn now, you see a lot they decide to have this thread of people's stuff, and yeah, but there's a right way and a wrong way to do it. My guest today is Scott Aaron, and we've got a lot more to talk about, but I did want to make sure that our listeners knew that you are literally an internationally acclaimed and award-winning online marketer, best-selling author, top podcaster, and international speaker. And you're the guy to go to for converting traffic. I like that phrase. Do you remember what's the guy that was really big for a long time, and his book was called Magnetic Marketing? And Mike, I'll think of it. But that's kind of, it's the idea of attraction marketing. And I think what I hear you saying is that is actually what I hear you saying. Please correct me if I'm wrong, about about building relationships as well as becoming an authority, which you are on LinkedIn. Does that make sense?
It does. Dan Kennedy who you're thinking about?
I know Dan, and I've actually seen him at years ago at the Zig Ziglar convention when there'd be like 30,000 people in an arena, and Dan was always the last guy to speak, and half the crowd, mostly real estate people and professional salespeople, and half the crowd had left the arena, and Dan was last on the agenda to speak with maybe a few thousand people left, and he would outsell Zig Ziglar with a few thousand people that were left because his marketing principles were crazy good. So, but no, it's not Dan Kennedy, but I'll think of it later. But anyway, we have a lot of favorites, and Dan is definitely one of them.
Yeah, it's LinkedIn is one of those misrepresented platforms. And again, I talked about the 4 layers of LinkedIn. So the way that I describe it, Dave, is it's almost like a wedding cake. So you have, the big base at the bottom, and then you have your tiers, and they get smaller. And then at the top of the tier is the little figurine of the couple that just got married. So the way that I describe LinkedIn, the base of what you need to do on LinkedIn is your profile. It's first and foremost it's the biggest key, because if you don't optimize your profile the right way, you're invisible. You don't come up in searches. No one's visiting your profile. There's keywords that you need to use, just like a website. And it's funny, I had a guy reach out to me on LinkedIn, and he found me through Google because he Googled LinkedIn marketing or whatever the keywords he used, and both of those keywords are on my LinkedIn profile. My website didn't even come up first. My LinkedIn profile came up first. So LinkedIn talks to Google and all of those search engines. I mean, on my website, if people go to scottaaron.net, I have a free infographic that anyone can download. It goes over the 6 tactics and simple steps to perfecting your profile and optimizing it the right way. When your profile is filled out from top to bottom, it's not just getting it to all-star level, because anyone can get it to all-star. You just have to fill out the forms. It's making sure that you have the right keywords literally flurried throughout your profile. In the headline, in your summary section, or the about me section, in the experience sections, publications, things that you've done around and in that arena of what you want to be known for. Because all of those things, if they're flurried the right way, when people are using LinkedIn searching for people or jobs or positions, you're going to pop up. And that's going to enable you to grow a big network very quickly. I've grown mine from 500 connections to nearly 28,000 in just about 4 years. And no tactics, no follow for follow, or some of the engagement pods you see on LinkedIn. I've done it just through being consistent every day. So the first tier is your profile. The second tier is actually building the ideal network. And this is the thing. You need to look for that mirror image. You need to define who the right people are for your network. You don't just want anyone in your network. You want people that you can actually connect with, build relationships with, rapport and trust, whether it's them hiring you hiring them, you collaborating, you passing business back and forth. You get 30,000 connections. It sounds like a lot, but on LinkedIn, you can get there very quickly. So you have to be very strategic, but also intentional with every single connection that you have, because there needs to be value there. You have to provide that connection value, and they in return need to provide you value as well. And because here's the thing, if you want to talk about getting organic engagement, if you have a network that has no interest in what you're going to talk about or what you do, they're never going to engage with you. It's a waste of a connection. So really make sure that it's a viable connection. So that's the second tier. The third tier is messaging people. And I think this is where the wheels come off of the bus. Because David, I'm sure that you were a victim of this as well. I'm sure if you've spent any time on LinkedIn, you've gotten these 18 paragraph long drunkalog messages from people trying to sell you on this product, this program, check this out, go, I'm having a free web. Oh, listen, if you want to know the quickest way to lose the respect and trust of someone, try selling them in an initial message. That is not what people want to hear, read, or see on LinkedIn. So I created something called the magic formula. And it's a 3-step process to crafting an ideal message to send to someone. And the first step is mentioning the person's name in the message.
Right.
Hey, David, great to connect to you. I know it sounds very simplistic, but people don't understand the power of actually mentioning someone's name. It really personalizes everything. The second thing you want to do is you want to bridge the gap between you and that person of why you're connecting with them. What's the connecting point between the two of you so it makes sense to the person who's receiving the message, not just the one who's sending it. So I would say something along the lines of, hey, David, great to be connected to you. I noticed that you also had a business podcast, as do I. Would love to hear about it. Share more about mine to see how we can best support one another here on LinkedIn. So right there, when David receives that message, number one, he's seeing the bridge that's been, the gap that's been bridged by our two relatable things, which are both of our business podcasts. So David would say in his head, oh, that makes sense. He's got a podcast. I got a podcast. That's why he's reaching out to me. He's not trying to sell me anything. The second thing I did was I used one of the most important words in the English language, and it's the word support. It's been scientifically proven, and they've done studies on this, that when someone just reads the word support, it actually creates a chemical release of the natural chemical called oxytocin, which is the feel-good chemical. So we have dopamine, we have endorphins, we have oxytocin, we have cortisol. Oxytocin makes people feel good. It's when you see someone doing a good deed or an act of service, or when you perform a good deed, that rush that you get, that's the body releasing oxytocin. When someone reads the word support, that's how you make them feel. So you're bringing them closer to you instead of pushing them further away. The third part is finishing with something called a CTA, a call to action.
Right.
Questions lead to answers. Statements lead to nowhere. So I would simply say, David, do you have any time this week or next week for a call? So I state their name, reason for reaching out, call to action. You have to ASK to GET. So if you're not asking, you're never going to get. And that's the simplistic way of really messaging someone on LinkedIn. But the fourth and most powerful component of 4 tiers is the content creation. So I talk about often with people something called a push-pull method. The push on LinkedIn is when you're doing the reaching out, would love to connect with you, let's talk. That's the push. You're getting to people right away. But then you have the pull. The pull method of LinkedIn is the content that you're providing to people that don't want to be pushed. They're not interested in getting on a call right away. They want to kind of check you out, see what you're about. So you need to produce one piece of content every single day. Now, whether that's a post, a video, an article, a discussion in a group, you have to do something to reach out and touch your audience that you're looking to pull towards you every single day. Now, you never sell, you never pitch, you never do any of that. You don't even self-promote. You do 2 things. Number 1, you educate. You educate your audience on something maybe they don't know about something that you're really good at that's within the network and the connection between you and the audience. Number 2, you inform them. Inform them of maybe something that's changed, something that's come about, something that maybe came up that they can then bring into their business. Because the mistake that people make, David, is this. People end up posting and talking about things on all of social media of what they want to talk about instead of what people actually want to hear. So when you can put yourself in the shoes of the end user, of the listener, of the potential client or customer, then you're going to get engagement. But the other important thing is that if you're producing content, have a call to action in all of your content, because what this does is it allows you to get feedback. So I did a video the other day asking people, I call it the recipe for success. And in my opinion, the recipe for success is consistency, clarity, and action. You combine those three ingredients in any business, you'll succeed. And then I asked my audience in a video, I said, of those three, which one do you struggle most with? And I've gotten a couple replies already, and both those people said being consistent. So now I'm getting feedback from my audience, which means they're craving how to become more consistent. So then I can take that research, I can take that data and start to create content around what they're craving, which is learning how to become consistent. And those are the 4 simplistic ways of how to genuinely use LinkedIn to actually use it the right way.
Wow. My hand is hurting here from taking notes, man. This is fantastic information that everybody needs to hear because, it's like you were saying, the difference between a Facebook and just, blasting out kind of generic stuff to people doesn't make any sense.
Doesn't do anything.
Yeah. So this is very, very helpful, man. And the fact that, like you were saying, based on both of us having the podcast connection, how we connected, and may I say this, you made it was painless, if I can say it that way, for us to really quickly connect on the intellectual knowledge, but also on the emotional level to find commonalities, make connections. And here we are today, and you're my guest on Fresh Start Podcast, and I'm just really appreciative of what you're saying. And I was kind of smiling when you said you have to ASK to GET because yes,
so Jeffrey talks about all the time.
Yeah, and I did remember it's Mike Dillard. If you look up Mike,
love Mike Dillard. Yeah, he's great.
So the magnetic marketing, which has been enumerated in many different ways by different direct marketers, network marketers, professionals, leaders, speakers. Yeah. So I'm really glad that we did connect, and it's making sense. And it isn't, as I spoke with a guy in Texas last week. He's called the Blind Blogger, and he is clearly blind. That'd be a good guy for you to talk to as well. He's very sharp, and he basically has made something with his life and his circumstances.
Awesome.
Maxwell Ivy, he's actually on my podcast now. It's already been published. So
awesome.
That'd be a good connection for you. But the fact that we are, we have not mentioned one thing about selling each other stuff. Have we?
There's nothing to sell when you provide value, and that's the thing. I don't have to sell people anything. I'm not in sales. My job is to create connection and trust. Right. With that person. So they're investing in themselves. I'm just giving them a door of opportunity to walk through to create more income for their business. That's my job.
Yeah. And everything you shared so far has been fantastic. Let me ask you this. What would you like me to leave with our listeners as to what would be a best way to contact you or get some information from you? Website, your LinkedIn profile. What would you recommend?
Yeah, I mean, my website kind of houses both of my 2 #1 best-selling books that you can get on Amazon or right off of my website, scottaaron.net. That's 2 T's and 2 A's. And it also goes over all my products and services. And I have a monthly academy. I have virtual coaching. I have one-on-one coaching. And then, on social, you can click the social links from my website. But if someone wants to, find me directly, you can just search Scott Aaron on Facebook or LinkedIn, and I'll pop right up, or on Instagram. My handle is @ScottAaronLinkedIn, and would love to connect with you.
Fantastic. And you did mention in our conversation that you did have did you say a free download of some of these principles?
It's a free infographic. So if anyone goes to scottaaron.net, on the right-hand side at the top, you will see something that says free infographic. You click on it, you enter your name and email address, and I will email you the 6 steps to optimizing your profile on LinkedIn for free to get you started.
What would you like to say to our listeners that I'm trying to be very respectful of our listeners' time right now because we're all so busy staying at home. So,
Well, I mean, now honestly, my business has actually increased in the last 2 months because of the availability that people now have to be at
right.
home. So, if anyone's looking for an optimal time to really go all in with your business, to double, triple, quadruple down, now's the time. But I always like to leave audiences with these two last thoughts. Number one, always remember that your failures open the doors to your successes. And this is something that I've learned in my life and making millions, losing millions, making million, losing. I mean, life's a roller coaster ride. But the more that you're willing to learn how to fail, the more willing you're going to learn how to succeed. So if you fail fast, you're going to succeed even faster. Number two, always remember that there's millions of ways of how to succeed, and there's only really one true way to fail, and that's to quit. So if you don't quit and you don't give up, you are guaranteed to find a way of how to succeed. And I love leaving that with audiences, and I hope this helped you and inspired you and motivated you to do more.
Man, thank you, Scott. That is powerful. Don't quit. Yeah, I'm with you, man. Been there, done that. I got too many stories to tell about failures, but
Me
the
too.
point is, failure is not fatal. I've heard that. May have been my friend John Maxwell who said that, and he's got that book, Failing Forward. I feel like in my life, I might have not succeeded on the forward part all the time,
Right.
and some of the stuff, some of the crazy, dumb things that I've done. But here we are. We're still breathing. We're still plugging along here. And what I hear you saying is that we are generating hope during a time when people kind of can get lost on the way if they get distracted. So, Scott, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate this, and I too want to connect back with you and learn more about your LinkedIn process because that is outstanding. Thank you, sir.
David. I appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Great to be with you.